The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days, turning the capital into a mirror of sleepless lights. Inside a radio station forgotten by progress, an aging sound engineer named Tom Decker adjusted the levels on an old microphone that still smelled of whiskey and ghosts. He was there for a private broadcast. One final message from Senator Richard Hale, a man whose voice had once moved nations and now shook with something darker than age. The air was thick, the static almost alive. And then the senator began to speak. He confessed, not in headlines or speeches, but in quiet, trembling sentences, about how his opponents didn't vanish because of politics, but because of something buried under the old theater on Madison Avenue. About a pact, written not in ink, but in blood, that promised power in exchange for voices, literal ones. Every 10 years, one broadcast had to be made. Every decade, a sacrifice to keep the static from speaking back. Tom didn't believe it until the recording equipment began to hum, though he hadn't touched a thing. The dials spun on their own, and the air smelled like ozone and burnt copper. The senator's eyes turned glassy, his words slowing into whispers that didn't match his lips. "They're listening," he mouthed. "And now they know your name, too, Tom." By the time the broadcast ended, the senator was dead. Heart failure, they'd say. But when the police replayed the tape, there was a third voice, faint, hollow, whispering beneath the static. They dismissed it as interference. Tom didn't. He knew what he heard, his own voice answering a question he never asked. He left the city that night, but the sound followed him. In motel radios, in car speakers, in the silence between songs. Always that static, pulsing like a heartbeat. When he unplugged everything, it didn't stop. The noise lived inside his ears now, whispering coordinates, names, dates. "You're next, Tom," it said. "The decade ends tonight." In desperation, he broke into the old theater on Madison Avenue. The building was condemned, its walls dripping with mold and history. In the basement, he found rows of radios, hundreds of them, still plugged into the walls, though the power had long been cut. Each one played a different frequency, a different confession, a different soul trapped in eternal replay. And in the center of the room, a chair. On it, a microphone made of brass and bone, engraved with words in Latin. Vox vincit tempus, the voice conquers time. He sat down. The static grew louder, shaping into the sound of applause. The broadcast had begun again. At 3:03 a.m., every radio in Chicago flickered on, broadcasting the same signal, a voice saying, "This is Tom Decker, signing off." Then, silence. The next morning, the radio station burned to the ground. Investigators found no bodies, only melted tape reels, fused together like wax. They rebuilt the studio years later. Sometimes, on stormy nights, a signal still breaks through. The same voice, soft, calm, timeless. "Good evening," it says, "and welcome back to the hour that never ends." By dawn, the city forgot. Headlines spoke of an accident, of faulty wiring, of one more tragedy swallowed by the storm. But somewhere in the static between stations, a voice still lingered, calm, composed, eternal. The studio lay in ruins, flames licking the wet asphalt, smoke spiraling into the indifferent rain. And from a single, half-melted radio, the transmission continued, smooth and familiar. "Good evening, and welcome back."